So in today's video, I'm going to go over 3 potential leakage problems you might be getting from your single handle ball valve style kitchen faucet. This one happens to be a Delta. But you're either getting water that drips, like this one is, from the end of the spout and thus the aerator, which could be worn seats and springs, or when you lift the handle, underneath the handle you have a cap area, water's coming out through there and it drips down. That could be due to a worn or pitted or corroded ball or a worn out cam and cam washer. Or you're getting water that tends to, from the stem body here, it leaks from here or at the base, and that could be due to worn out O-rings. So I'm going to go over all that and how to replace it. So the first thing you want to do is look under your sink and turn off the hot and cold water shutoff valves. Okay, so I'm just going to reach under here and turn these valves all the way to the right, clockwise, until they stop. Now come back up to the top, open up your valve, and that will release any water that was in the system. But right now, everything's off, nothing's coming out. I'm free to start working on this. So after you've gone left and right, up and down, and no water comes out, the very next thing you want to do is plug your drains before you remove any parts. I'm going to use towels on both sinks. So next you're going to focus on the set screw. Sometimes the set screws are in the back. You might have to use a mirror and the appropriate Allen key to get to it. In this particular faucet, it's right up underneath the handle and makes it very easy to get to. Sometimes your kits have a specific tool, but otherwise I'm going to use my Allen key, and then you just want to turn this to back it out enough to release the handle. It's still in the handle, so I'm not going to lose it. So once you've removed the handle, you'll see how that fits on. There's a little wedge here, and when you put that set screw back in, it kind of engages in that little notch. Okay, now I have access to the cap in this inner assembly. Sometimes there's water in here. Just grab your rag and soak up the water, and then when you eventually are going to remove all this, water is going to come out, so just keep your rag there. But a simple fix sometimes with leaks, depending on where it's leaking from, is to simply use that special tool and then clockwise tighten the retainer nut. If you tighten that retainer nut too tight, you probably won't be able to move the handle, so there's kind of a happy medium. Sometimes that solves the problem, especially if it's loose. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and remove the plastic retainer nut, and then I'm going to remove the cap. Okay, so now I'm going to remove that plastic retainer nut with that special tool. Once I get it loose enough, I can use my fingers. Okay, and so that's just removing the plastic retainer nut. So in regards to moving the cap, sometimes you can use what's called like an adjustable strap wrench. This is a rubber strap, and you can place this along the cap. Therefore, it's not going to scratch anything up and try to remove it that way. Again, it would be moving it to the left. However, I tried that. It didn't work well, so I'm going to have to try to use my channel lock pliers and careful not to chew anything up. But on this raised little section, it looks like there's a bolt here. Just right above the cap. If I can break that loose, there we go. If I can break it loose, now I've got it with my hand. And now I can go ahead and unscrew the cap. Yeah, the water's going to come out of there now. That's just water that's in the line. That's okay. After you've noted the key marks, you can go ahead and grab this stud piece and wiggle this piece out. Okay, so that's the ball, the cam, and the cam washer. And then I'm just going to move that off the top. On this ball piece, you're going to notice there's a certain hole here. And you'll need to use your rag to soak up the water. There we go. And now I've got to clean all of this stuff out, clean this off, and now I'll get access to the O-rings. And I like to start with the bottom one first, because when you go to roll it over the top one, it should make for a little bit easier to get them undone. That way it doesn't get caught in the one up top, the wedge up here. When you go to replace them, you'll do it in reverse order. So I did the bottom first. When I replace it, I'll put the top one on and then the bottom. There we go. O-rings have been removed. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to clean this entire area up. Also, make sure you check for this little bottom kind of a plastic washer ring. If it's not here, it may be on the bottom end of the body here. But you want to make sure that's still in good shape. So if you're going to clean up some of that stuff in vinegar, you can clean this off. The other stuff is soaking. Otherwise, you're just going to clean this and you're going to replace it with brand new parts. So then I'm just going to use some of that vinegar with the toothbrush, and I'll go through all the threads and where the O-rings were, and I'll clean along the base and just try to clean up this area. So I did put some plumber's grease around the threads, but I've already put the base ring on, and now I'm going to put the top O-ring. Let's get that on, and then that will roll down into the top position, which will make it easier for the second one to go on, because it'll roll over the first one. Rolls over that first one, and it'll come down right into this bottom groove. Okay, now I'm going to use, if you don't put some plumber's grease on this, typically when you're swinging this handle, it will probably be really rough and rigid and noisy. So I'm going to use a little bit of plumber's grease and make sure I grease the O-rings. Okay, so now that those O-rings are all greased, I'm going to put a little bit of grease along the main faucet body. And then make sure I have it right side up. And we're going to slip this on here. There we go. That went on really nice. All right. There we go. So this should move nice and freely and make no squeaky noise. So the seat sits over the smaller aspect of the spring, and then the wider spring sits into the base portal opening. That's how you sit those in their proper seats, and then you'll use your fingers to push them the rest of the way in, and you'll feel it when it seats properly. Okay, so now I've greased the bottom of the cam washer. Going to put that over it, press that down so the ball and the cam washer connect. This part where the shield bottom faces me and that key lock will fit in that little groove. So next I'm going to grab the cap, and yes, I put some plumber's grease all along the inside of the threads here. So, and these threads too have some grease, but I'm going to orient that, and I'll just hand tighten that. Next item is that retainer nut. So the threads are down, those 4 little notch holes are up top. And that's what's going to tie down that assembly of the ball, cam, and cam washer. So once I get that correct, and that will determine how stiff and tight the ball is to move. Once you've tightened that retainer nut down, just move the little knob here back and forth, left and right. Make sure it's not so tight you can't move it. And right now that feels pretty good to me, so now moving on to the next step. So now I'm going to take the handle, which I've greased, along with the set screw, and I'm going to screw it in here first into the handle, partially. And now I'll put the handle on, and then I'll tighten the set screw. Okay, so now you're ready to turn the water back on from underneath. Before you run it, remove your aerator, because you don't want some of that junk water going through your aerator. So remove the towels. I'm going to open this up. Some of that water is going to be dirty or kind of a funny odd color. Let it run left side. Let it run right side. Notice there's no leaks coming out. And so once that washes through for a bit, now you can go ahead and replace your aerator. And then there's no leaking from underneath the cap or any part of the base where the O-rings were, and there's no leaking from the aerator. Problem solved.